Two, two, two. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. Two, two, two. Two, two.
Because I have a
get you
battery
some.
that lasts
Two,
for
two.
15 minutes.
Testing.
Test 1, 2. Checking Digimics. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Oh, mic wasn't plugged in all the way. 2, 2.
so. I would like to call the meeting to order of Municipal Council of the District of Lunenburg. It's Tuesday, October the 14th at 6 o'clock. And welcome to our first council in the community meeting. We're here in Conquerall Bank and happy to be taking our council agenda out to the community. I want to thank the staff in particular because I know this is a lot of extra work to coordinate all of this and get us set up here tonight. But we're happy that we're able to do that. We would acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and happy to share the land with them. Are there announcements, acknowledgements, or recognition? Councillor Smith.
I would like to acknowledge the 140th anniversary of the Union Square Hall, which took place on September 28th. I'm a little late with this acknowledgement. Is that okay? To celebrate the day, they held a tea complete with sandwiches and a beautiful cake made by Gwen Schneer, the reigning champion of the annual Union Square baking contest. Many of former students of the one-room school attended and could tell you just where features like the wood stove had been located. And there were many fascinating artifacts from the building's history laid out, including photos, class ledgers, report cards, youth group records, and correspondence with the local MLA as they improved the building under the Little Red Schoolhouse program. A former student and longtime volunteer who'd worked to preserve the building, Sherman Vino, accepted a certificate from Modal from myself and Councillor DeLong. I want to congratulate the association led by President Kathy Savelle on a truly memorable event. And if you would like to challenge for the crown of the Union Square baking contest, you can do so on November 15th.
I'll add it to my list. Anyone else? I would like to acknowledge the Seaside A Cappella group, which is a lot of residents in this area are members of that chorus, and they had an international win at the competition in Ireland. They returned today, and this was a big deal. It's a big deal to travel internationally as a community choral group, and many of us have had the pleasure of hearing them sing, and they are enthusiastic about their craft and very committed. And now they've added a male chorus to the group as well, so anyone is welcome to join, but I do want to recognize their international win tonight. Anyone else? We will move on, and at our meetings, we always allow time for public input, and this is a time when we welcome community comment on concerns they may have or topics that they want to bring to the attention of council. We ask that those statements be presented with respect to the other members of the public and to staff and council, and we ask that you provide your name and community where you reside. If you have a question or concern that can be addressed tonight, we will do that. If not, we will respond to that question by email to you, and we will follow up in business arising from the minutes in a subsequent meeting so that that becomes part of the public record and that everyone has an opportunity to learn the answer to the question. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak tonight? Oh, okay. I think that was 2 hands I saw go up. 2? Judy? No, I'm not sure who I'm seeing. If you'd like to come forward now, and you just come right up here to the mic, and it's probably easier to sit so that you can use the microphone. And if you just give your name and your community where you live. You do need to use the mic. You have to turn it on.
Okay. I'm Catherine Barrett. I'm from District 10 in Garden Lots. And Yeah, I'm interested in hearing the report on the progress on climate action tonight. And I want to thank you for all the work you've done so far on climate action. My question is about the budget, the 25-26 budget. And given that the climate action plan is for 2020-30 goals, and that we are just less than 4 years away from 2030, and this budget takes us into those 4 years. I'm wondering how the budget recognizes and provides for the accelerated effort that is noted by the report to meet emissions targets by 2030. Thank you.
So thank you, Catherine. We did receive your email, and I will respond in detail to that.
Yep.
But to your question, I think in looking ahead, our strategic planning session will be held at the end of this month for Council. Climate change is one of our strategic priorities. In the last year, we were really continued along basically with the plan that had been implemented by the previous Council. We'll be looking at it at our meeting, as I said, later in October. And then we'll be looking to see what adjustments, and there are recommendations came forward in the staff report that will be is tabled at tonight's meeting. Right. And then we'll be considering that. And then we budget on an annual basis, and with capital projects pushed out over 5 years, some projects over 5 years. So our budget for the coming year that we'll be working on starting in November through till March will reflect our budget plans related to climate change for the coming year, budget year, which will be 25-26. Okay. Or 26-27, I'm sorry, we're in the 25-26 year.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Yep.
And I'll provide a bit more detail in the email to you.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you. Yep, just 2030 is not far away.
Right. Mr. Himmelman?
Good evening. Andrew Himmelman, Newcombville. I just wanted to ask a question about the tender that was put out for Miller Point Peace Park, and just wondering why staff or Modal has decided to go with a bonded arrangement on such project. It eliminates a lot of smaller businesses in the area. I bet you if you went and did a survey of how many companies were actually bonded in Lunenburg County, there's very, very, very few. I would say the one or, only one is probably the one that was awarded, which is great that it's local and it didn't go outside of the municipality. But on such a project, I'm not sure why it's been chosen to go bonded. When you look at the other projects for sewer and those larger ones, I'm not sure if those were bonded as well. So just wondering why we're...
I will speak to that in a general way. If you want more detail, Andrew, we can provide that, but he can make a comment on that.
Yeah. No, that's about it. I'm just would like to see, tax dollars stay within the municipality.
Yep. So our tendering and purchasing policy references the Nova Scotia Construction Standards document as a guide, and it has in it bonded requirements for construction projects. And so we follow the general guidance given by the province. We did make a special provision recently for a First Nations company because they couldn't get bonded because they're not allowed under the Indian Act. So we altered the procurement to allow for a certified check instead of the bonding requirement. And so that is something that we can look at and consider. We are still planning a workshop where we invite local businesses in to get them to tell us what issues they have that maybe are a hurdle or a hindrance to contract with the municipality. So that's certainly one of those items that we can address or put forward as a discussion point.
Yeah, no, just, you know, you've got a 57-page document which is basically, in layman's terms, 3-inch top coat of crusher dust, a couple culverts, and some pads for picnic tables. And it took 57 pages to describe that. And then you have to have an insured, bonded policy in order to even put a bid in on that project. So anyways, maybe the workshop will. Thank you. This one?
Anyone else for public input? Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for coming and attending and participating in the meeting. We will now move to approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda or changes? I'm just going to highlight that the latter part of the agenda, which deals with mayor, deputy mayor, and councillor matters, some of the items that are listed in there, depending on the length of the meeting and discussion, we may defer to our policy and strategy meeting, just so our meeting this evening doesn't get too late, okay? And I hope that'll be acceptable. So with that possibility, would someone move the approval of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Hubley. All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. The minutes of the September 23rd meeting have been circulated. Are there any changes or corrections that need to be made on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll declare the minutes approved as circulated. We'll move, is there business arising from the minutes? No, not today. We do have, under awarding of tenders, a couple of different items, and one is a tender regarding the Municipal Activity Recreation Complex, more commonly known as the MARC, and Wilds Lake Park Community Plans and Conceptual Designs. And Ms. Payne will comment on these and bring us through the discussion.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. The staff report that you have before you is concerning MARC and Wilds Lake Community Plans and Concept Design. So we are here as staff to make a recommendation to award that RFP this evening. A little bit of background in the executive summary, and I do want to note that the capital budget date should say 2025-2026. So in this year's capital budget, we did include $130,000 to develop a community plan and conceptual designs for both the Municipal Activity Recreation Complex and Wilds Lake Park. For our standards document, both of these are considered regional parks, and we have some minimum standards listed in that standards document. The RFP was advertised in early September with a closing date of September the 29th this year. The RFP was posted on the provincial procurement site. During that time frame, multiple firms reached out with a number of questions, which we responded to, and it was posted on the procurement site as an addendum, so they all had the responses to the questions that were posed. At the closing date and time, we had 3 proposals that were received. The purpose of this project is really to conduct an extensive community consultation process that will help shape both of these regional parks in our communities. It's about reimagining how these regional parks can continue to serve the residents of the District of Lunenburg and visitors to the area. So as previously stated, we received 3 proposals by the ending date, which was September the 29th. We had 3 staff from the project committee management team review those proposals. We reviewed them separately, came together, discussed our ranking, and then we opened up the technical pricing because that was opened afterwards, and then that played into the evaluation. So as you can see, the 3 groups was the Glen Group Landscape Architects and Projects Manager, Mills and Wright Landscape Architecture, and Fathom Studio. And in the middle column is how they were ranked, and then the final column is the pricing that came through their technical proposal. So staff are recommending, based on the scoring from the 3 staff, the highest score, which was Glen Group Landscape Architects and Project Managers, who had a score of 92.3 with a cost of $105,380, excluding HST. So as I had stated before, 130,000 was allowed for in the budget, so all three proposals actually fall within that budget. There would be some additional funds spent throughout the process to pay for any hall rentals, any publicity, room rentals, refreshments as we do the public consultation, and any other incidentals. I'll just skip right to the alternatives. So the alternatives that council has before them is they can award the RFP. If they decide not to go with staff's recommendation, you could award the RFP to an alternate submission, or you could choose not to award the RFP. Are there any questions?
I think we should put the motion on the floor, and then we can have questions and discussion. Okay? Someone put the motion on the floor?
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council award RFP 2025-05-401 Municipal Activity Recreation Complex Mark and Wiles Lake Park Community Plans and Conceptual Design to Glen Group Landscape Architects and Project Managers in the amount of $105,380 plus HST, and I so move.
Seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Reinhardt. Now we'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Oikel and then Hoopley.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering, what were the 2 points that Group Landscaping scored higher on that would justify an extra $5,000, that we should spend an extra $5,000 above Phantom or above the Mills and Wright? What was so significant about those 2 points that would justify that?
That's a good question. All the proposals were pretty detailed. They were the most detailed, and again, we all scored them separately. So it was around what their work proposal would deliver, and just some of the principles and how they were going to do their community consultation. So it wasn't one specific point. It was their combined proposal and their deliverables. If you're asking me if all three could do the work, I think the scoring shows that they were all relatively high. And the reason why I stated we opened the pricing, which is what we do with all of them, we review the proposals and base it on that and look at pricing after, so that pricing doesn't have as big an impact when we're actually looking at their work proposal, how they're going to deliver it, their team, the expertise that they're bringing to the table, the other projects that they have done, because these are all things in the references that we check. So I did check references for all of them. I have to say all of the references were fairly good. So as you can see reflected in the scores, it was pretty close, but this particular company did have some expertise around playground that wasn't evident in some of the others, and we were looking at an accessible playground specifically at the Mark. That was one of the things that had been discussed by previous council, so it was put in the RFP that that was one of the components that we were looking at that particular park. So I do have the proposals here and the scoring, and I have my 3 pages of notes that I took on each one. But it was really the full package of what they were delivering. And like I said, the points were so minuscule between the scoring, and it was 3 individuals scoring it. So I don't know if that answered your question, but.
No, it does. Thank you.
Councillor Hoopley?
Thank you. Both come on? Okay. So for me, it's important. The public consultation is the important part, and I wonder if there's a time frame on this yet, or is it too early to say when we would be out in the public for that?
They will be looking at November to do some stakeholder and focus groups. There'll be an online survey, and they'd be doing that probably likely November, early December. They have until March 23rd to deliver everything to us. That was the closing time of having the whole package.
Will we be notified of the public engagement?
You absolutely will be. And there's built in the RFP checkpoints with the project management team and checkpoints with council. So that's been built into the proposal. So there'd be a what we heard report. There would be like a draft concept plan that comes to the project committee and to council before anything is finalized. So we have built in that there would be definitely checkpoints throughout the process.
Deputy Mayor Vino, and then Councillor Oikle.
Thank you. When companies put in a tender for this, do they include travel cost to come here for meetings and viewings? Is that included in the bid they put in? And a follow-up to that, where are these companies from?
So yes, we get them to break down some of their costs and their mileage, and all the incidentals is included in the proposal. That would be included in the final bids. And they say how many times they're coming in person, because in the RFP we have stated so many meetings have to be in person. And I can tell you that the Glen Group is from New Brunswick, Mills and Wright is from Newfoundland, and Fathom is from Halifax.
Councillor Hubley, and then Smith. Oikle, and then Smith.
Thank you. So regarding that, I'm surprised that in your list for public consultation was not in person. You didn't say in person.
So there will be an in-person.
There will be in person in both the Wildvale area as well as the Mark area and other places. Especially the Mark is pretty much, even though it's a community in that where they live, but the Mark is used throughout by residents through all of the municipality. And so will they be looking at all of the municipality or just the Day Spring, Rhodes Corner, that part of the county for the Mark?
We haven't determined exactly where the public consultations will take place, but there will be a public consultation, and I suspect they'll be asking about the Mark and Wiles Lake during that public consultation, and then there'll be an online survey, and then we have identified up to 10 focus groups or stakeholders. So for example, like at Wiles Lake, we know that the fire departments use that's a specialty use. So as one of those focus groups, we would be asking them to have an in-person focus group with the fire departments. A specialty group at the Mark would be the 8 ball groups that use the fields. So that would be a specialty group that they would be speaking with. The Lunenburg County Accessibility Committee is another one. So we've tried to build into the RFP a number of points that there would be public consultation, whether those are focus groups, whether that's public consultation in a public forum where people attend, or online, because some people prefer the virtual fill-in as opposed to coming to a public meeting. So it was very important that they had a mixture of what they would be doing for public consultation.
Before I go to Councillor Smith, I'll let Alex jump the line, the deputy CAO.
Yeah, just to build on, to remind council members that we've adapted our public engagement planning process. So you all will receive a briefing note which summarizes the work once the consultant's in place and has had the kickoff meeting. And that will get into more of these details about exactly where and when those events will happen and all the calendar appointments and all that sort of thing.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I was interested as well in, where the companies are located, and noted that Fathom was in Halifax and was closer. I also noted that Fathom has a lot of experience working in the area. So they have projects in Lunenburg, Bridgewater, Ketchimakujik. They worked on the Buddy Day Institute building, and also the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. And what strikes me about those projects is that they're working with equity-seeking groups in the province. And certainly when we're looking at our public spaces, we want to make sure that consultation is really robust and reaches as many people as possible. So I was wondering if in the tender, if we are considering, what relationships these companies have that we can draw on for our public consultation process. Because it just seems to me that that Fathom, and I have not looked at the other ones, Fathom actually just has a really beautiful website. So I don't know about the other two, but just wondering if any of that factors in, through our EDI lens that we administer.
Sure. So again, as part of our request for proposal, one of the things we did ask for, using the accessibility lens, is that they have Rick Hansen certified or somewhat of an equivalent. Again, all three firms were bringing that expertise. We also want to think about through an environmental lens, and all three firms commented on how they plan using the environmental lens. In the proposal, we asked for them to provide references and to provide projects that they have worked on. Again, all three proposals had references and had projects that were similar of nature, where they have consulted with the Indigenous community, where they have use the accessibility lens. So we thought about that as we were putting the proposal. And again, I hate to reiterate, but the proposals were really close in scoring. So they weren't like in the 70s, they were in the 90s. They were all three very strong proposals. So we did look at, when you're reading those documents, looking at those and the principles that they bring and the beliefs that they have and how they deliver public consultation and how they design. So those were all things that were looked at when we were scoring the companies.
Any other questions? Okay, the motion is on the floor to accept the proposal as presented by Glen Group Landscape Architects. All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Raise your hands way high. Motion is carried with one, those opposed. Motion by Deputy Mayor Vino. We'll move on then, and Ms. Butts is next with the next tender proposal, which is for Miller Point Peace Park Trail construction, which is a continuation of the work that was started and completed with the kayak accessible launch that was already installed. So,
yes, thank you and good evening. So the tender for Miller Point Peace Park Trail construction was issued on September 18th and closed on October 2nd. The tender was posted to seek bids from qualifying contractors to construct new accessible trail within Miller Point Peace Park. And this new portion of trail would connect the outer parking lot to the inner parking lot and would meet all the accessibility criteria, as well as provide rest opportunities along the new route of approximately half a kilometer of new trail. In addition to that, it would also see the upgrades to an existing trail loop to meet accessible standards as well. And so that would be adjusting grades, surfacing, width, and in total we'd be just under a kilometer of new accessible trail in Miller Point Peace Park. At closing, there were 4 bids that were received, and 3 of the submissions met the criteria and were accepted. The lowest bid was submitted by W. Gearhart Property Improvement of Lunenburg County. It should be noted that in the approved 25-26 Miller Point Peace Park capital budget, there were a number of projects under the Miller umbrella. One of them you referenced as the accessible kayak launch. So that project has been completed. So there was a fund under the capital budget of $478,000. A portion of that was utilized for the accessible kayak launch, and another portion for the design works and tender and also construction support for the trail works. The amount remaining in the capital budget for the trail construction is $330,000. When we factor into the applicable HST to our lowest bid, It puts us over the capital budget in the order of 52,000. Staff had originally determined that these upgrades to existing trails and the new trail construction would be funded through grants in the order of $150,000 for trail construction, along with the Canada Community Build Fund. We have confirmed that the additional money needed to award this contract and see this project through to completion is available in the CCBF fund. So it is staff's recommendation that we proceed with the project and award the tender to the lowest bidder, W. Gearhart Property Improvement.
Would someone put the motion on the floor and then we can have a discussion? Councillor Moore. Councillor Bell.
Mayor McLean-Weil and members of MODL Council, I move that Municipal Council award tender 2025-05001 Miller Point Peace Park Trail Construction to W. Gearhart Property Improvement in the amount of $368,534.55, excluding HST. I so move.
And a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Moore. The floor is open for discussion. I did have one question, because you mentioned the grants that we would be available. Is that reflected in this, or did I miss, or did we not get what we thought we were going to get? I know we got some for the kayak launch, but...
Correct. So we had, including the grants for the trail construction, I took off the 150, so leaving 308,000 to the CCBF fund, and we did also receive a $20,000 grant or $40,000 grant for the kayak installation, but we only anticipated receiving 20, so we did in fact receive more funding towards the kayak launch than anticipated. So the grants combined with that CCBF fund is what was designated to cover the costs of the works within the park. So they are factored in here, aside from that additional $20,000 that we received in grant funding for the accessible kayak launch.
So then my understanding is the 52,000 is in addition to the grants and the original
that is correct.
Budgeted amount. Okay, thank you. Councillor Weichel.
Thank you. I'm assuming, and you can correct me, that the new trail is the one from the parking lot that residents have created through the woods along the side of the road. Is that the one that the new one's going to be?
Yes, with one addition. So there's going to be a portion of the new trail at the initial gate at the outer parking lot. There will be road adjacent trail that will be constructed, so that will be new, and it'll run along the length of the road. And then we do deviate from road adjacent new construction to upgrading that footpath, and that might be the one you're referencing. That we just call it a footpath that people have carved through the woods, and it comes out behind the picnic shelter. So that will be upgraded to come out through, and the trail will exit behind the picnic shelter. And we're going to regrade that area as well to make that picnic shelter accessible. Currently, the grades don't allow for access to that picnic area, and that'll tie in really nicely to the kayak launch. And from there, if park users want to drive right into the inner parking lot, we will also have a new section of trail from the inner parking lot to the existing loop trail that will be upgraded. So there'll be multiple opportunities for users to either park in the outer lot and do half a kilometer into the inner lot, or they can park in the inner lot and do a loop trail to come back to their vehicle. So we're creating multiple recreation opportunities for new and existing users.
Okay. Other questions? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion as been tabled regarding Miller Point Peace Park, signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no presentation scheduled for this time and no correspondence. We'll move on to recommendations from committees and boards. And that relates to the Finance Committee. And these are recommendations that are coming forward from a meeting that was held last week and relate to a series of items that were recommendations to come forward from previous discussions at Council. So, Ms. Wenzel, do you want to just briefly highlight what we're doing? If people need to know the details, they can go to our Finance Committee meeting of last week, which would be October the 7th, to hear the conversation, but you can just highlight what we're looking at tonight.
Yes, certainly, Your Worship, and good evening, Mayor and Council. So the first one is the amendments to our property tax exemption reduction policy, number 12. So what we've had some discussion about giving the municipal treasurer the ability to approve properties destroyed by fire or other natural disaster based on what the assessment office gives us for the revised value. So we could do that mid-year. And we did some housekeeping updates on the wording of the policy to make it more plain language.
Would someone put the motion on the floor? Councillor Hubley.
Thank you to Mayor McLean-Weil and members of Council. I move the Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee and approve the proposed amendments to Policy 012 Tax Exemption Reduction as presented. And I so move.
And a seconder for the motion, Councillor Burns. Is there discussion on the motion? Councillor Smith.
I just wanted to ask how this process is initiated. So if, a resident has some kind of property damage loss, what's the process for getting your taxes altered? Would you go straight to, would the municipality facilitate that discussion with property assessment?
Actually, yes. So in the event of a fire, the property has to have proof of destruction. So it usually comes through the fire department. So the local fire departments, we advise them on, this is our policy, so they would let us know on this date, there was property damage to this property, and then we would facilitate that. So our staff would contact PVSC, who would revalue the property based on the date of the incident. They would give us a revised value, and we would adjust their tax bill accordingly based on that date.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the motion signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. We'll move on to the second item from the Finance Committee, which is related to tax billing and the postal strike.
Yes, so last week in the Finance Committee, we did discuss what we were going to do about the tax bills that were sitting at the printers waiting to be mailed due to the postal strike. And we had a discussion about interest in the due dates of taxes. So the discussion really was, in COVID, when bills could not be mailed, we just made interest 0%. So the recommendation was to ask Council if they would like to do that again until we could get the bills in the mail. And at the time, we had recommended a 30-day kind of window after it's been mailed. Our understanding now is that Canada Post is going to be delivering mail again. So we've contacted our printer, and as soon as we have confirmation, they will put it in the mail for us, all the tax bills. And we're thinking that perhaps anticipating the mail might be a little slower than normal. That we would perhaps just say November 30th is the new due date, and that's when interest will apply after that date.
Does that mean we need to change our motion here?
We are suggesting that it would be more helpful and transparent to residents that we set a final date. So yes, you have a recommendation from your Finance Committee, and Elena, speaking on behalf of staff, is suggesting we'll have an easier time of managing this, and that still provides for a full month. Even if mail delivery takes 3 weeks, that's a full month for people to deal with their bills.
Okay, would someone table this motion, please? Councillor Brooks.
To Mayor McLean Weil and members of the council, I move that municipal council accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee and approve the proposed amendment to policy 012, tax exemption. I'm sorry, I read the wrong motion, pardon me. Motion 10.1.2. I move that the municipal council accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee and approve the temporary reduction of the interest rate charged on overdue property taxes to 0% until November 30th, at which time the 10% interest as per policy 009 would resume on overdue amounts. I so move.
And a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Oikle. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. The final item is dealing with a designated community fund request, which for those that may be listening or those in our public gallery, we do have an option for community groups to utilize the charitable status that the municipality has to manage funds to receive donations and then use those in a project that benefits the community. In this case, this is a motion that's from Cherry Hill that will deal with the Cherry Hill Old Community Cemetery and reflects a donation made that is going to then be transferred back to the community. And the person that made that donation got a charitable receipt for the donation, and the Cherry Hill Community Cemetery doesn't have that authority to grant a charitable receipt. So it is a benefit to our community. So if I could have maybe, Councillor Reinhardt, would you like to table this?
To Mayor McLean Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee and grant the Friends of Cherry Hill Old Community Cemetery $95 as per policy 048 designated community project fund. And I so move.
And a seconder, seconded by Councillor Bell. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. We'll move on to the Mayor's, Wardens, Deputy Mayors, and Deputy Wardens Committee. And are you leading us on that?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, so the Mayors and Wardens Group has been established to provide a bit of governance structure to our regional anti-racism and regional accessibility functions. The Anti-Racism Committee met for the first time in the last couple of months and identified a concern with the terms of reference that have been provided to them. Specifically, the terms of reference excluded the ability for a member who's not an elected official from a council to serve as the chair. And the committee felt that that actually contradicted some of the spirit of what was required of their work. So they sent a memo forward asking mayors and wardens to consider recommending a change to the terms of reference. That group did so, and so it's before councils, relatively easily received, I believe, from the mayors and wardens. So we're simply looking for a small amendment to the terms of reference tonight.
So just for information, this has to go to all the councils for approval, and that's the way the committee is structured. So that's why it's before us tonight. Would someone put that motion on the floor? Councillor Moore.
To Mayor McLean Weil and members of council, I move that municipal council accept the recommendation of the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee and approve the proposed amendments to the terms of reference to permit the chair to be selected from any member of the committee, and I so move.
And a seconder, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Smith.
I'll just say, as the representative from this council, and also I'm the interim chair, which I accepted while we got this sorted out. Yeah, at the meeting, it was very, very clear that people hardly wanted to move forward until we fixed this, because it didn't make sense. The accessibility committee doesn't have the same terms of reference around community members being able to take leadership. So yeah, like Alex has mentioned, it's pretty straightforward, and yeah, it would be great to have that changed so we can move forward.
All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. The second motion, 10.2.2, relates to the advisory committee as well and to recommendations for appointments to the committee. Would someone put the motion on the floor? Councillor Hubley.
It's craziness. To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee and appoint Kelly Goody to the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Advisory Committee for a one-year term ending March 31st, 2026. And I so move.
And a seconder for the motion, seconded by Councillor Smith. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried with one opposed. Councillor Brooks. The third motion in this set of motions relates to appointments to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Would someone put that motion on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor Vino.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Lunenburg County Accessible Advisory Committee and reappoint Teresa Alexander Arab and newly appointed Linda Mills and Natasha Strickland to the Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee for 3-year terms, each ending September 30th, 2028. And I so move.
A seconder for the motion, Councillor Reinhardt. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried with one opposed. Councillor Brooks. Staff reports. We're now moving to planning and development and our local climate change action plan. And Abid is here to provide a presentation, I think, and answer our questions, and we'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to, it's on the screen now. Today I will be presenting on our annual progress report on our climate action plan, and we also looked at, evaluated our climate action plan and will be providing some recommendations on if there are areas where we could make some improvements to our existing climate action plan. A detailed progress report is provided as in your agenda package. A bit of an overview for how the presentation will flow. I will start with a bit of a background, and then we'll provide highlights of the corporate progress and the community progress that we have made, and then followed by an evaluation of the plan, and then the recommended changes to enhance the implementation of our plan. A little bit of a background. As you all would know, Council declared a climate emergency back in 2019 and committed to act on climate action or climate change by joining FCM's Partners for Climate Protection program. And as part of milestone 3 of the program, municipality created and adopted a local climate change action plan back in 2022, and clearly setting up community and corporate emission reduction targets, and with overarching goal of becoming net zero by mid-century and becoming a climate resilient community. The plan itself is divided broadly into 2 chapters, corporate and community. Corporate plan focuses on reducing emissions from municipal operations and protecting critical services, while the community plan focuses on reducing community-wide greenhouse gas emissions and strengthening our resilience to the changing climate. In regards to our annual progress that we have made in the past year or so, On the corporate side, our emissions have been reduced by about 22.6% below the 2019 baseline emissions level. That translates to roughly from 1,119 tons of carbon emissions per year to 921 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year. And our corporate target is to reduce 64% emissions by the end of this decade and to be carbon neutral by mid-century. This year's progress was heavily driven by the grid itself becoming cleaner and some of the projects that we delivered on the corporate side. And the highlights of some of those projects include the Conquerall Bank wastewater treatment plant's 15 kilowatt solar array. The exact size is 14.4 kilowatt hour, but it is our first net zero facility municipalities, and its expected payback is about 13 years, and the expected emission reductions are about 13 tons per carbon dioxide equivalent per year, and it's also cut our utility costs by up to 100%. On municipalities' municipal services building, we have also installed 100 kilowatt rooftop solar array, which is fully commissioned as of this year, and is also its payback is also expected to be around 13 years, and with annual savings expected to be around $19,956, with emissions expected to be reduced around 81 tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year. On fleets and charging front, we procured 5 EVs over the past 2 years. Expected emissions reduced by about 22 tons carbon emissions equivalent per year. Chargers-wise, we have installed 6 new charging ports, so that's 3 dual new chargers. And now we have in total 10 charging ports, 2 on the public side and 8 on the municipalities' fleet parking side. And we've also laid conduits just in case if our fleet expands and for any future installations. On the community side, our emissions have reduced by about 9.94%, like it's almost 10% below 2019 baseline emissions level, which translates to reduction from 314,000 approximately tons carbon dioxide equivalent per year to 283,000 tons carbon emissions per year. On the community side, our target was is to reduce 30% emissions by end of this decade, 65% by 2040, and be carbon neutral by mid-century. Some of the highlights on the community side, it's been broken down broadly in the mitigation and the adaptation categories or themes. On the mitigation front, some of the highlights, the retrofits itself continue to make steady progress. We have completed 19 home upgrades in last fiscal year, overall cumulatively 47 so far. As of March, we had 25 active files for the program, and its impacts about 83.13 ton carbon dioxide equivalent that has been reduced and provides annual savings of about $26,654. In regards to EV promotion education, we are constantly seeing steady increase in EV uptake in the province at a county level. 406 new EVs were registered in 2024 in Lunenburg County, avoiding 383 ton carbon emissions per year. And in this year, the trend is continuing to go upwards with 580 new EVs registered by summer of this year itself. We also saw a successful South Shore Electric Avenue event where about 111 residents participated in the event. In regards to battery recycling program, we collaborated with Call to Recycle. It's a non-for-profit where we established a battery recycling program, successfully diverting over 1,500 plus household batteries from the landfill, which includes primary benefits, include safety and pollution prevention. Some of the other broader highlights include public transit service-wide. Our $65,000 contribution allowed Lunenburg County Wheels to expand its door-to-door services across MODL. Staff is continuing to work with TOB Town of Bridgewater to explore the expansion of fixed route services to the MODL communities. Community Solar Garden project, as you all know, we had worked extensively on the Oak Hill solar project, 7 megawatt. We had submitted our application early this year. In the summer, we had got feedback from the province that it wouldn't be financially viable for municipalities to own and operate, given we were ineligible to receive federal ITC credits that would have significantly reduced our capital and operating costs. After careful deliberations by municipal council, it was decided to pass on the project to a private developer who could benefit from ITC credits and reduce the construction and operational cost of the project. And it was decided to pass it on to AI Renewable. And should it be successful in receiving the bid from the province, it would allow us to indirectly cut 6,000 tons equivalent carbon emissions and to help make the grid cleaner. On the adaptation front, as you may see on the policy and planning side, early last year, Nova Scotia decided, at a provincial level, decided not to proceed further with their Coastal Protection Act. However, despite that, MODL continued their work towards drafting and adopting coastal protection regulations, which has been in effect since August last year. And now broader municipality-wide planning and regulations is well underway, as you are all well aware of that. Land conservation policy-wise, the policy was adopted early this year. And since then, the conservation strategy project has been launched that would guide municipality towards achieving its 20% land protection target by 2030. On natural assets and invasive species front, several of tax sale properties were evaluated for conservation potential. We also bid on one and secured one property during March tax sales timeline. On the Hemlock Woolly Adelgid project, like for the hemlock's protection, the inventories are well underway. We have so far inventoried several of our municipal parks and expect to complete the inventories by the end of this year, which will be followed by pursuing a suitable treatment plan for the SWA in our parks. On tree planting front, since 2023, we have planted over 1,500 trees with 450 plus residents participating in our annual tree planting event. And we are moving steadily towards our goal of planting 10,000 trees by end of this decade. Lastly, local food security-wise, we had conducted an extensive baseline surveys back in 2023, which was followed by food hub feasibility project that was undertaken by municipality in 2024. But it was turned out that the food hub itself wasn't feasible at this time, but staff will continue to pursue other initiatives that will help us to achieve our 20% local food consumption targets. On the water security front, about 2,500 plus water relief coupons were distributed in the last fiscal year alone, and cumulatively we have provided 9,000 plus water relief coupons to the residents. On well upgrade financing program, we have completed 6 upgrades last year with 25 active files and 5 on the wait list as of March 2025. And council also approved additional $600,000 funding for the program this fiscal year. So that provides the highlights on how our progress had been. So in regards to evaluations, staff evaluated both corporate and community separate-wise. So on the corporate side, we have made solid progress in reducing our emissions, and we remain on track, provided the momentum is maintained. What we are seeing overarching, like trend-wise, like some of the projects that we had undertaken, like municipality solar projects on a municipal services building, Conquerall Bank, acquiring 5 EVs have allowed us to significantly reduce emissions, but there are still broader, larger sources that still require deeper action. Some of the wastewater treatment plants, solar projects were deferred, so that still remains to be acted upon. This year, we had procured 2 new half-ton gas trucks. So what it does is it locks us down to 7 to 8 years of emissions that will be required to offset later on. Contracted waste hauling services is still not set zero emissions, and we recognize that the market is still developing. Sustainability weighting was added to the last RFP cycle, but we had not received any bids with ZEV trucks. But we'll probably try again during the next RFP cycle, which might be a more realistic switch point to more clean fuel fleet. So in regards to likelihood of meeting our 2030 corporate target, it is feasible, provided we maintain and accelerate delivery of our actions in our upcoming 5 years. So what it would take should we remain on track and achieve our emission reduction targets, scale the big levers, so facility is solar. We would continue to remain committed to solar projects at our New Germany wastewater treatment facility, Cookville wastewater treatment facility, and plus the ES PV solar array after the retrofits are done, and continue monitoring our municipal services building in Conquerall Bank performance tracking. Building standard, as for our new constructions too, we will need to prioritize net zero for new builds wherever it is feasible, and aim for near net zero on major renovations where feasible again. Fleet side, it may be sensible to use an evaluation tool in our upcoming fleet procurements that weighs overall total cost of ownership and emission reduction potential, and then include that zero emission truck criteria again in our next waste hauling RFP cycle. Corporate waste side, there's nothing has changed. We need to continue pursue initiatives that will help us reduce our corporate waste by 20% below 2019 levels. On adaptation side, it is recommended to conduct fire smart assessments and treatment of all of our municipal fleets, and also apply a climate risk screening to all of our climate and projects and site plans. On the community front, evaluation-wise, we have made decent progress, but it largely came from grid itself becoming cleaner, that its emission intensity has reduced from 740 gram carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt hour to 580 kilogram carbon dioxide equivalent from 2019 to 2023. The 2024 official figures are still pending. It will be released by federal government hopefully sometime soon. The EV uptake is still been upwards since 2024, and we're also seeing increased uptake in this year too, but it still is not as fast as we would hope for. Home retrofits are increasing year by year, but still far from 1,400 homes target that was set to meet by the end of this decade. And we also recognize there are also data gaps, because right now there's very limited visibility into residential upgrades that are happening outside of our clean energy financing program on their own. It could be through federal programs, provincial programs, or sometimes on their own. So staff will continue to pursue establishing some data sharing agreements with partners to close that gap. But it appears to be like the actual emissions may be even lower than what our current estimates states. Likelihood of meeting our target, we have made decent progress, but we still need to continue accelerating our delivery of these projects if we are to meet our emission reduction targets. In regards to what it will take over the next 5 years to be able to meet our targets, homes and building side, it is recommended to bring in navigation services in addition to financing options that we have already been providing to residents, that will allow us to scale moving from dozen retrofits to 100 retrofits per year, and benefiting from other available rebates and provincial and federal financing programs. Clean mobility-wise, it is just recommended to continue working towards expansion of public EV charging options, and also supporting home, multi-residential buildings and workplace charging, and continue to support public transit expansion so the residents have more alternative modes of transportation options and don't have to rely on private vehicles to move around. It is also recommended to initiate a community grants program or option to fund community-driven initiatives that accelerate reductions, including waste diversion and other local projects. Adaptation side, it is recommended to continue expanding our temporary relief, water relief program and well upgrade financing program as the needs arise and to continue to meet the demand. On natural asset side, continue working towards our land conservation strategy development and adoption and working towards protection of land and planting trees and meeting our planting trees target that has been set for 2030 and completing our SWA inventories and adopting a treatment plan to treat the SWA infestations in our municipal parks and facilities. Emergency readiness, ongoing training, and partner delivery could be essential to strengthen resilience. Some of the recommended changes that could be made in our existing plan that would enhance and streamline things and would further speed up the delivery of the programs and services and help us achieve our emission reduction targets and be on track. On the corporate side, on the solar at facilities, it's minor language changes. So currently it is suggested, or in our existing plan, it is written as 100 kilowatt, as in like a fixed limits. And that arises from our old net metering program that the province had. But now those legislation changes are in place. It might make sense to remove that hard cap and just right size the solar based on each of those facilities' load capacity and take advantage of the new 1 megawatt net metering limit. Building side, in our existing plan, it was only Mark retrofit that was listed as our focus was on, but it is recommended to prioritize all of our new buildings that will be built to prioritize for net zero wherever feasible, or try to make them as energy efficient as possible, and aim for near net zero for major renovations where feasible. On the fleet side, right now it was listed as replace 8 conventional gas vehicles with EVs, but you have a question?
Yes, may I?
We get through the report and then we can have questions on, are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's just that our motion is that we approve these recommendations, and I'm thinking we should really discuss each recommendation individually to better understand what actually is being recommended.
Let's hear the report and then we'll work through that, because I agree there's a lot in this and we need to have a much fuller discussion than we're going to have tonight on this. So,
moving on. Fleet-wise, it is recommended to get rid of that fixed number as our fleet is already growing. It is close to 14 now. And it is also recommended to adopt a flexible cost and emissions-based approach when it comes to procuring new vehicles, so that it keeps like a fair balance between emission reduction at the same time ensuring competitive total cost of ownership for those vehicles that we procure, and also to include zero emission trucks criteria in our new waste hauling RFP cycle. The facility resilience and risk, this wasn't explicitly listed in our corporate climate action plan, but it is something that has already been doing, so it would make sense to also list that explicitly and continue implementing those resilience measures to ensure there is, it protects services and there reduces disruptions to those services. On the community side, one of the recommendations is around the homes to add energy efficiency navigation services and also to formalize data sharing amongst different levels of government and also with utility partners. Energy efficient buildings and community building side, again, to expand the scope of those navigation services that goes beyond just residential buildings, but also include those commercial, industrial, institutional buildings to provide them that navigation service to be able to walk them through several programs applications and also connect them with the right programs to fit their needs. Public transit clean mobility, it is recommended to keep all of them under one umbrella and also add home MURB, multi-unit residential building and workplace charging support alongside public transit, anti-idling, active transportation, e-bike share. Some of the things that are recommended to be merged under community climate grants. One of them is the waste reduction and recycling more initiatives. Same applies for the local food security initiatives too. Recommended to be delivered through a community climate grant options, as opposed to having it as a standalone item at the moment. And speaking of which, creating a new action, community climate grants, to be able to deliver projects and that are led by the community, and we provide enabling support through grants that brings together EV education, waste reduction, local food security initiatives, youth projects, and some of the other pilots, and also to add feasibility and matching grants into that mix to reduce fragmentation, make management easier, reduce staff load while still achieving benefits. Finally, some of the actions are recommended to be removed or deferred from the list. One of them is car share program, recommended to remove as a standalone action. Rationale goes as the feasibility seems to be pretty low at present. It can be revisited should the conditions change in the future. No More May community pledges and region-wide working group is also recommended to be removed as standalones, and it could be allowed through grants if it appears that it is clearly impactful, but for the time being, it is recommended to be removed as standalone actions. And rationale goes as it is very little bit challenging to have a measurable GHG impacts or resilient impacts on their own. Community scale renewable energy project, we have had a good hands-on experience with that project, and it's also recommended to put it aside for the time being and remove it and continue to monitor third-party or regional delivery and keep it as an advocacy for now. Energy standards for new builds, this was put as a standalone action item, but given that we don't really have an authority over mandating higher energy efficiency tiers from the building code, it is something that is the province who sets that minimum building code energy tiers. So it would make sense to just remove it as a standalone action and still pursue it as an advocacy or encouraging new building developers or new building builders to make their buildings as energy efficient as possible on a voluntary basis, as opposed to mandating it, because we don't have that authority to do so. Overall, there are also some minor other changes that are recommended to be made. One of them is the reporting schedule itself. Like up until now, what we have been doing is we are reporting on our fiscal year window. So any previous fiscal year, and we report on its progress made during that fiscal year sometime in the summer months. But the struggle with that is by the time council is during budget deliberations, there is a long gap that builds from the summer all the way up until the new springtime. So it is recommended to change that to a calendar year progress reporting, and every year making it a fixed February month reporting period. So every year in the month of February, staff will report on report on progress that has been made on our climate action plan and cover the period the previous calendar year. IDEA integration, because now that municipality has adopted its own IDEA strategy, it also makes sense to embed the IDEA lens across the climate action plan that would look into all the programs, design, their accessibility and engagements that we do and reporting that we do to ensure they are accessible and all inclusive. Data stewardship, it is like a minor operating tweak that would be made internally to really assign a data steward in each department to further streamline our reporting on our climate action progress, and using a standard annual reporting templates for departments and other external partners. Public monitoring, we also have been already working in the works on launching a public dashboard that would eventually replace or supplement the yearly progress reports. In that way, residents would not have to wait for a full year to really know what updates or what progress have been made on all the climate actions. Instead, they could just see that happen in real time. That's mostly it. So in summarizing, where we stand on the corporate community side, our emissions are reducing. We are making decent progress. But the gist is that if we have to be on track, our delivery needs to accelerate. On the corporate side, we have made really solid progress. And as long as we maintain that momentum, we are well on track to meeting our 64% emissions reduction target. And some of those proposed changes are just summarized in that two paragraphs. I think I may open the floor for questions now.
Thank you, Abid. It's a very comprehensive report. There's a lot in it. And as Councillor Oikel has pointed out, there's need for a lot of discussion because I think this is really an evaluation of I would say the plan that we've had in place for now 5 years. And there are a lot of recommendations here that deal with some of the fundamental approach that we as a municipality take to our community, as well as how we involve what we can control more hands-on is the corporate piece. The community piece is much more difficult because the big reductions are going to come from home heating and transportation, which are really, in many ways, out of our control. So having said that, I'll open the floor for discussion. And my suggestion is, and we can kind of conclude the discussion with this, is we're going into our strategic planning, and there were 2 elements of our strategic plan that we really need to dig into during our time together in a few weeks, which is around climate change and the quality of life, which were 2 of our strategic priorities we haven't really had full discussion on. We really carried on with climate change initiatives that have been established by the previous council, and this is a document that then positions us as a council to consider what we want to do going forward based on the experience and the evaluation that has taken place. So I think we need that time. We need time to think about this and also to have kind of a big general discussion about what we think should happen and where we think our efforts are going to make the most impact in terms of reductions of greenhouse gas emissions and where we should invest our resources. So for now, I think if there are general questions, I think please address them, but knowing full well that I think tonight we won't be making a decision, a recommendation. What we'll come out of our strategic planning with, and to go back to staff, will be a direction of what we'd like to see, what we see in here that really aligns with what we see from a strategic point of view, and then we'll ask you to come back with the recommendations, and then we'll get reflected in our budget for the coming year. So I think council needs that time to really digest. So let's open it up for discussion. If anybody has big dispute with our approach, I'm happy to hear that. As a council, we need to have that here, but knowing full well that there's going to be a number of opportunities for digging into this. So I see Councillor Bell has his hand up first, and we'll start with that.
Thank you. In the general plan here, you're asking us to consider replacing 8 vehicles with internal combustion engines with electric vehicle status. One of the things I heard last October, real loud and clear, is don't buy any more electric vehicles. I wasn't told by 1 or 2 people. I was told by a lot of people. So I have to take into consideration the advice that they gave me. Now, that's not to say that a lot of people may be wrong, but there are other nearby municipalities using EVs, such as Town of Bridgewater police vehicles. And I understand in general discussion with some of the councillors that they feel that that was a good move, moving to EVs. I was wondering if there's any way that that municipality might share statistics with us on that vehicle fleet that is being used, and they do have documentation for more than 1 year. That would make it easier for me to understand or base a decision on facts rather than what people believe. I'm not saying which side is right, because I truly don't know. And I sometimes don't necessarily like to take my advice from the federal government who is trying to promote a program. But if I can see hard facts from a municipal unit that is currently using them, that would make it easy for me to make my decision. Thank you.
If I may, I think because now that we already have our own fleet full of EVs, we don't have to look at neighbors to provide us any hard stats. We can compile that ourselves, looking at how our existing EV fleet has been doing with regards to numbers. In regards to emission reductions, it has already shown that we have reduced 100% of our operational emissions by switching to EVs, because now there's no tailpipe emissions, so there's no operational emissions in general. But whatever electricity it uses to charge up those vehicles also comes from our rooftop solar, so it fully reduces our emissions on that front. But if there is interest in knowing cost-wise or otherwise, looking other staff could compile that data and can always come back to council to present on how our existing fleet has provided other benefits to municipality. Is that something the council would be interested in?
Go ahead.
It might be helpful just to go back. The actual recommendation, which is in line with direction received by staff from council, is that an evaluation is applied on a case-by-case basis on the purchase of each vehicle, and that should consider emissions, but should also consider life cycle costs of the vehicle. So you're not comparing, for example, the price of one type of vehicle against another one simply on the purchase price, but you're also looking at maintenance costs and the fuel type costs, as well as emissions. So you have a holistic view. So that the recommendation in a B's report does reflect that, and that's direction that had been provided by council.
I think our experience this year with the two vehicles that are noted in the report was that there weren't, when we went to request for proposal, there weren't any EV vehicles proposed by in those tenders. So we didn't have a chance, as a council, we didn't have a chance to apply those criteria that you're discussing or get at the points that Councillor Bell is raising about the long-term costs associated with it versus the overall benefits. So as I understood, we have that in place as we go forward, but this is a bigger discussion about whether council feels this is something we need to consider, as we move forward. That'll be part of strategic planning. Now, Councillor Smith, Vino, and Brooks. Councillor Smith.
Just a point of clarification on our process. When we do the strategic planning discussion around climate, will we have Abby available as staff at that meeting? Okay. And then if I could ask a follow-up, like a very specific question. The Community Climate Capacity Program, in one of the actions there, it says we are enrolled until at least 2027, March 2027, with the possibility of extension. I'm just wondering, as we're thinking, strategically around how to make use of that program, can you just speak to what is available to us in that program, and how could we maybe strategically make use of that resource as best we can in the next year? Because I do feel like that program has provided us with a lot of value in terms of, I could see the work on the conservation policy and the strategy moving forward, and I'm sure there was other work that I actually don't know much about. But if you could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
For sure. So the Community Climate Capacity Program, it is run by Clean Foundation, funded by the province. It allows rural municipalities to get extra staff resources to be able to work on some of the climate initiatives. At the time when we had applied for this program, we had to come up with what projects that we want to work on utilizing those additional staff resources. And at the time, we had prescribed natural assets management, and land conservation was one of the projects that we had listed. That's how we got approved into the program, and that's what we will be utilizing, or will be able to utilize our staff resources for the upcoming 2-3 years. But at the time when the program was launched, they had in their application that we had put in a joint application with Town of Mahone Bay, but we had listed what projects we are interested in working on. And based on those projects, the Clean Foundation hired specialists. So for example, GIS specialists or research analysts were made sure they had those skill set to be able to allow those partner municipalities to work on those respective projects. So this is what the core structure of the program was, to be able to provide additional staff capacity to the rural municipalities. Yeah.
So, sorry, are you saying that we could still draw on them for anything related to natural assets?
Yes.
Natural-based assets?
Yes, mostly broadly, natural assets. They also do help us in applying for grants, provide that services too. But specifically project-wise, it's mostly natural assets, land conservation, those projects they have been helping us so far. If you may recall, the land conservation policy, that they had done rigorous research for us to be able to, that fed into developing and adopting that policy itself. Tax sale properties evaluation, a lot of the behind GIS work and gathering that data went into was through CCC program, and plus ongoing land conservation strategy piece where the public engagement is heavily being led by Clean Foundation's CCC program team that has allowed us to be able to implement these projects. Yeah, we will be able to utilize them all the way up until 2027. The extension, we haven't been officially approved yet. We don't even know if we will be approved for an extension or not, but we certainly have applied for an extension for at least one more year. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Vino.
Thank you. I had wrote down 2 areas to bring up. The first one was fleet, but Councillor Bell shared many of the thoughts that I would as well, so I'll skip over that. And the second one is the Community Climate Grants Program. So many programs out there now are structured around EVs and solar panels, and there's a lot of organizations that is not something they can do. So I really like that we are looking at other things such as waste reduction, local food, and the youth projects. And while I'm not sold on the EV education component in that, all of the other ones I think are great. And wondering if you can provide more details on how this would work, specifically where you mentioned add feasibility and matching grants.
Yeah. So the feasibility and matching grants is an easy one because you recently would may recall that it is very typical of council to provide matching grants to community organizations who may be working on community-led projects. The one recent example that's coming to my mind is the FOCB, Friends of Crescent Beach, where municipality had provided $20,000 to the group as a matching grant, where the group raised $20,000 and the remaining 80% was funded by the province to be able to do a vulnerability assessment on the Crescent Beach. So that is one example, but it's something to do similar where we already have been doing it, but it will be explicitly under Community Climate Capacity Grant, where we support or at least provide those matching grants where the groups may be interested in either doing feasibility studies or the whole project itself, so we could contribute and provide that enabling support to those community groups. Was there any other question?
So would we have an actual grant called a community climate grant, or just feasibility and matching grants is the clarification I'm looking for? Thank you.
So right now, because this is still a proposed recommendation, we don't officially have a name yet. We could name it something else, but the overall bigger umbrella would be community climate capacity grants, but under that, separate grants would have their own names depending on which grant, similar to what we have for the REC programs, like each specific project have their own grant name to be able to be easily identifiable by residents.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think, and then we'll go to Councillor Brooks, but I think this does raise the kind of a strategic discussion that we have around, on the community side of this, is there more value in us looking at how the community steps up as opposed to us stepping in, if you understand what I mean, and that we take, I think that's what you're getting at here, is that we would look to community to partner with us on a project that they might initiate, as opposed to us initiating in the community. So it kind of gets to some of the bigger discussion we're going to have tied into quality of life as well. So I think that is for a big discussion in our strategic planning. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. I'm going to try to paraphrase a constituent who had a question to me, and they were wondering about the amount of money that Modal is spending for climate change and greening the grid. And they said, so I should be quite confident that the electricity that I receive in Modal is all green electricity. I won't respond, I won't tell you what my response was, but perhaps you could help me or help that constituent understanding what that means, and I'll just tag on. You said that EV cars have no tailpipe emissions. I think it's important that we tell the whole story for people so they understand where Nova Scotia's electricity is coming from. Can you share a little bit of that, please?
Yeah, for sure. If I understand this correctly, your question is like, if the electricity that comes to MODL, is it renewable, you mean? In the sense?
I think many constituents aren't informed about the mix of electricity and where it comes from. I understand what we are striving for, but I think we're leaving out an important piece of where it's currently coming from. So the concept of green or green EVs doesn't actually exist unless you're putting solar panels on your roof and you're having a closed loop. So I'm just trying to have clear transparency for the constituents.
Yeah, and that's very much right to say. So right now, our grid is still not as clean. It still is heavily reliant on coal to generate electricity. When I say our grid, it's primarily Nova Scotia Power Grid. And each year, federal government, for example, they release what is its current emissions intensity of that grid. And year by year, the more renewable energy sources that are being tied to that grid would in a way replace the coal's requirements. So for example, if you were to go back 3 years in 2019, our emission intensity of grids was around, let's say, 740 gram, right? And over the 3-4 years, like past year, we have added more renewable, like be it wind farms or be it solar. Solar by not only the community scale solar, but also any of the net meterings that homes install or facilities install, it in a way is greening the grid. So it brings down our emission intensities. Now the province, for example, is looking at offshore wind turbines to further clean the grids, or it's looking at connecting with the hydro in Atlantic. But that is the gist. Like right now, it is still heavily coal powered. It's not as clean. But when we say our electric fleet is being charged by solar, and it's rightly so because we have solar installed. So it's not only cut our tailpipe emission because it doesn't produce any, but all the electricity that the vehicles charge from comes through our rooftop solar. So eventually making 100% emissions reduced from our fleet per se. But now has it made fully our facility carbon neutral? Not yet, because our consumption is much more than the 100 kilowatt right now rooftop solar can offset. But our Conquerall bank wastewater treatment is a good example because it 100% offsets our electricity consumption of that particular facility. So it balances off. Whatever it is drawing from grid, it is balancing off by providing clean electricity to the grid.
Thank you. And just one quick follow-up. Do you have any sort of sense about what Modal's own carbon emissions are compared to other municipalities around Nova Scotia? Do you have any idea of what those numbers are?
Not really. When you say Modal own emission, like the corporate emissions or like the overall?
What we as a municipality contribute to Nova Scotia's total greenhouse emissions.
Yeah, I would not have that number on top of my head. How does it compare with other municipalities in Nova Scotia? But I can certainly look into and get back to you should you need to. Yes.
Just on that point that Councillor Brooks raised, Deputy Mayor Vino and I took part in a renewable energy in Nova Scotia with Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities webinar last week. They were talking about the breakout of the 40% renewable energy currently in use, where we are in Nova Scotia. 20% of that comes from the Maritime Link. 10% comes from hydro, and 20% from wind. So in that webinar, there was a lot of discussion about getting off coal, which is obviously a big part of our energy production here. And the person delivering the report said that even the coal-fired generation are not going to be totally eliminated, even at the end of this whole process of trying to get to the targets that have been set by the province and federally where we're supposed to be. They will be a backup. So coal is still going to be part of what we use for energy here. It's not going to be eliminated. It will be a much, much smaller part of what we're going to have. And I don't have that number in my notes, but it was really interesting to hear that those generation plants in Trenton and in Cape Breton are still going to use coal. They're going to move to oil, but coal will still be a part of what the energy used to fuel that generation. I don't know if that helps in answering, but it does break it out, 20, 10, and 20. Yeah, that's about 50, but in those ranges of what we're moving towards. Anyway, we'll move on to Councillor Burns.
Thank you. I just want to first say thanks to everyone who worked on this report. Climate change, ironically, is one of the few conversations where every time it comes up, I notice the temperature is a little bit higher. So thank you for stepping forward and having the conversation and bringing it forward to us. I just wanted to take a quick moment to really support the mayor's approach on this and thank her because I don't have to suggest it now. But also, I think there is conversations to have about where are our goals already aligning with just smart policy choices, where are the smart financial choices with infrastructure, and what are the levers that we can pull that are going to be most effective. And we can look back in 10 and 15 years when probably none of us are sitting at this table and saying that was worthwhile. And I think that is going to be in some of the larger projects and less in the smaller grants and the things the showier aspects of what it is we put in our plan as opposed to the less sexy things we put in our plan like infrastructure. So really looking forward to a more strategic decision where we can say where is it a little bit more upfront will save us a lot more in the long term, where is it that we're putting stuff in place where local contractors can bid and get the work while they're also trying to get more private work as well. Where are those opportunities? And I think for me that would be the larger part of this conversation and the better lever that we could pull as an organization.
Councillor Oikel and then Reinhardt.
Thank you. I would have really liked to have seen more adaptation and building resiliency ideas in your report for suggestions, because I really think that that's where we need to really focus for our residents because of the climate change, right? Because of what is happening now. I really like the idea of the grant idea. That's really, really awesome because it'll give people opportunities who think outside the box, opportunities to explore and to come up with some of those ideas, right? And I am really looking forward to our strategic planning and having this discussion further there.
Councillor Reinhardt.
Thanks for the update. I didn't see anything in the plan about energy poverty, and I was just wondering if we have any information on that, on how many people are living in the municipality, and if it's an issue, can we address that in this plan?
Yeah. Like when the originally plan was developed, at the point mostly the focus was on like emissions, and in the sense because it's easily quantifiable. Not to say that we don't receive any co-benefits. Energy poverty is one of them. Like to making buildings more energy efficient also alleviates energy poverty, improves affordability and whatnot. So even though it may not be explicitly explicit, for example, some of the programs like clean energy financing program helping residents make their homes more energy efficient in a way helps them to also alleviate their energy poverty. But I know, for example, like our neighboring municipality, town of Bridgewater, they explicitly focus on energy poverty and keeps emission as a co-benefit. There is one approach that they had taken through Energize Bridgewater program. They have been working towards, so they specifically look into stats-wise, what is the current level of energy poverty in their municipality? How could we specifically address energy poverty? In our climate action plan, we focused on emissions like as a broader like thing to be able to track down and see how we are making progress as opposed to specifically energy poverty. But not to say that I hope like our programs are still addressing that. It's definitely serious. And it's very prevalent for sure. Like even the rising cost of energy, our sense is certainly more prevalent in our communities.
Councillor Smith.
I just want to say that I'm strongly in support of the navigator role for our energy efficiency programming. I have been through the process, or at least I'm a new counselor, so started the process with some residents and see just how complicated it is. Like even when you open up the website and there's like all these different programs, it's very intimidating and confusing. But there are a lot of options out there for people to explore, to improve to lower their heating bill. And I think that, like, we have talked about this before in strategic planning last year. And for me, you know, when I'm looking at the climate plan, co-benefits, affordability is really key. Like, we have to be able to communicate to people like this will make your life better. And I do think that many of the ways that we need to transition and take climate action does make people's lives better. Things like public transit and energy efficiency, food security, water security, all that. Like, they're all very hopeful, active things that we can be doing to develop our communities. And I think a year ago, when we were first talking about climate at this table or in Cookville, I said something about hope, that, you know, we also need to be like leaders and offering hope to people. And perhaps that was taken as a little bit mushy. But since then, I have attended some climate seminars, which have really spoken to the fact that we need to show leadership in that actually, you know, showing people how these climate actions can improve their lives and how they can take action is really key. And one of the things that researchers often bring up is that as the climate crisis worsens, people's feelings of efficacy plummet because the risk is getting higher and higher. People's anxiety is getting higher because they're seeing just how real climate change is. But then their feelings of what can I do about it kind of drops. So we have to kind of intervene as leaders in our communities in that plummeting feeling around efficacy and say, no, there are things you can do. We're taking action, you can take action too. And that's one of the reasons I love the grants for communities, because I think that's going to be a real place for people to dig in and bring their ideas to us. And I'm just really excited, as Councillor Weichel said, like, that's a real chance for thinking outside the box. Yeah, so I'm so excited about the conversation we'll have in strategic planning.
I think I just want to make a couple of comments myself. And when you think about when the climate change plan was put together by the previous council, that was 5 years ago. And if you think about what our communities surrounding us and we have been through in the last 5 years as a community, the area that Councillor Weichel brings up about resilience really impacts my thinking a lot. And what I also have heard from across the district has been around concern about the effects of climate change, the water situation that we are in now, the dire situation that we are in now as a community, going into the end of October with no relief in sight in water. And this is about how and this touches people in a real way that nobody at any other level of government really can address. The other area is on fire. And again, there's nowhere else at a level of government that can really address it in the way we can through our fire departments and our community groups that help build that resilience. So the circumstances that we've been through, I think, should help shape our thinking about where we can have the most response, not ignoring the need to lower emissions, but recognizing where we can really have an impact on families and homes and our communities. And I think it is around resilience. So we may want to think about that carefully as we go through the discussion around what we're going to do in this plan going forward over the next number of years. And it isn't to ignore the issues of emissions, but when you think about where those impacts, who can have the most impacts on that, that's probably not where we can, in our communities, have the most impact. It's an individual decision on how you heat your home and what kind of vehicle you drive, and those become individual decisions. But where we can really affect some change and support our communities is in building resilience. I think that's my own personal feeling, and I just put that out there for thought as we go into our strategic planning. So, are there other questions or comments people want to make on this? Because this does frame up some of the considerations we'll take into our strategic planning, because we know that climate change and quality of life will be two key considerations in our strategic planning discussions coming up in the next few weeks. Anything else anyone wants to add? Okay, we'll move on the agenda to development agreement application, proposed cluster development. And Anna.
Good evening, and thank you. So I've just got a couple slides prepared regarding a new application that the municipality received regarding a development agreement, which ends up being a cluster development. So staff received a development application on September 19th regarding a proposed development in Wildville. The address is 7 475 Upper Branch Road in Wellville, and the proposed development covers over 2 parcels side by side. It's a cluster development with up to 96 residential units split between 3 2-story buildings as well as townhomes, and then in addition to that, a proposed 5,000 meter square light industrial or commercial facility, and the intended use of that facility has not yet been determined. It's currently unzoned, but it must follow the cluster development regulations as those are now in effect. And in addition to that, it must go through a development agreement process. So here is the master site plan. It's about 12.5 hectares in size. And as you can see, the top buildings, so in the north, those are the residential units. And then in the southeastern portion, that's where the proposed light industrial use would be. Yeah.
There is a road there right now that goes down to the back part. Is that road being utilized in there at the top, or are they putting the bigger building where the road is? I'm just trying to orientate where the road that's presently there to the 60303781 lot, which is the big one in the back. Do you know which?
So Upper Branch Road,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
main road, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a road, there's the main road, and then there's a road it has access from the main road to the 781. Is that the one at the top there, or is it part of their development?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying?
Maybe not. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
because I've been there, so I'm just trying to see it on your picture, that's all.
This is at the information stage, Councillor Oikle. So the details of this are going to, what Ms. Giblin will ask tonight is that we refer this on to Planning Advisory Committee. There'll be a lot of detail presented there as to that. So this is really just to get it through start it through the process.
Right. I was just wondering where
Are you talking about the Levi Heb Road?
No, that's above it.
Okay.
That's up farther.
You can ask that question afterwards. Okay. We'll let her finish her presentation. Okay.
Thank you. So this is just a brief overview of the process, but during the public information session, there'll be more details on that. So basically, the municipality receives a development application, and then staff begin the review. So that includes looking at the policies and how they would apply, as well as circulating the application documents to external agencies, as well as internal departments. And then public information will be held by staff, and then a staff report to provide feedback from the public information session to the Planning Advisory Committee, so PAC. And then the Planning Advisory Committee will review and make a recommendation to council, and then council will have the opportunity to provide direction to proceed. And that's the motion up. So basically, this is just, as the mayor mentioned, it's just very high level. It's just sort of initiating, kicking off the process. Yeah.
So this is really in line with, because we haven't had to really, this is our first cluster development that we've actually started from the very beginning with, and so this will go through the process. So could we have the motion put on the floor, and then we can have questions about the process it follows. Someone want to? Councillor Oikle.
To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council defer the development agreement application for the proposed cluster development located at 475 Upper Branch Road, PID 60303724 and 60303781 to the Planning Advisory Committee for discussion and recommendation to council, and further that staff hold a public information session prior to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Hubley. Discussion on the motion. We're just wanting to make sure that we got the motion right, that it was a referral. Okay. Yeah.
So I retract my defer and put in refer.
Okay, thank you. We don't want to defer the development agreement process. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously, and this just begins the process, and we can clarify the location and details afterwards, Councillor Oikle. Move to administration, the award of Comfort Center grant for West Side United Church.
Button? Wrong button. There's only two. Good evening, council members. I have a relatively straightforward item before you tonight, but since we are out in the community, I was hoping that we could just spend a little bit of time reviewing the background on Comfort Center grants, what Comfort Centers are, and how our emergency management system works. Oh, Kathy's so excited. She's ready to go to sleep already. So I'll just hopefully send this to presentation. There we go. So as all of council is well aware, we do emergency management regionally here in Lunenburg County. So we're part of an emergency management organization that covers all 5 municipalities. And the organization does all hazard planning for disasters and emergencies, which just means we have contingency plans prepared for our highest risk emergencies, such as floodings, hurricanes, and now wildfires, unfortunately. Information about the organization itself is on the web if any residents are interested, and the website's up there in the address. A key part of how we do emergency management, and in fact is done internationally, is relying on residents being self-sufficient and resilient themselves. The watchword within that sector is 72-hour preparedness, which just means residents are encouraged to be able to survive on their own and thrive on their own for 72 hours after a disaster hits. Our emergency management staff do go out in the community. They do presentations to community groups. They put on training sessions themselves. They'll do pop-ups to help residents understand what it takes to put together an emergency plan and how to be able to spend the 72 hours after a disaster having occurred in the comfort of your own home. Which is not to say that residents are simply left to their own devices. Obviously, as soon as there is an emergency, our emergency management staff activate our coordination center and are looking for what issues have arisen and what ways we can work to support our communities. A key part of this are comfort centers. So these are community groups that have stuck their hand up and said, in the case of an emergency, we would like to be able to open our doors and provide a place for residents to go. So this could be a place to get warm when it's cold out, or a place to get cool if it's hot out. They may choose to provide light refreshments. They provide access to places to charge electronic devices so that you can stay connected. We'll often provide updates to those groups so they have information, so residents coming to the hall can get accurate information about the emergency response. They also oftentimes provide a really wonderful community gathering point. So we've heard stories of open mic nights, theatrical performances, really a place for people to come together in a time, a challenging time. And one important distinction is comfort centers don't provide overnight accommodations. So comfort centers are provided by community groups. An evacuation center is what we would stand up if we were looking to house residents overnight. And that's when more support, for example, from the Red Cross or the Provincial Emergency Management Department would come into play. We have a good number of registered comfort centers. There are sometimes halls that open up and aren't registered with us, which is fine, but we do like to have their registration so that we can help promote to residents where they can go. So on your screen here is a map showing the location of registered comfort centers. So that just means that they have filled out a memorandum of understanding with the municipality to serve as a comfort center. They still retain control over when they open, so it's when they feel there's a need in their community and they feel they have the volunteer resources to run the comfort center, and they just provide us with the information about the hours so that we can promote it ourselves and report it to the provincial emergency management folks. Council works to support comfort centers. The primary way that we do this is through a grant, which is designed to help provide backup power to halls that want to serve as a comfort center. So in this year's budget, there's $14,000 available. We have an annual deadline. The grant application is quite simple. If any community groups are listening online, it's very easy, and we'll be happy to walk you through the process. We received no applications by the deadline for this year, but we have received an application since then, which was from the West Side United Church, which is in this area. It's an eligible application, and since there are no other applications and the size of the project is large enough, we're recommending the award of the maximum amount eligible under the program, which is $8,000. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Maybe we could have the motion put on the floor, okay? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council award a Comfort Center grant to the Westside United Church in Pence in the amount of $8,000. I so move.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Burns, seconded. Questions? Councillor Brooks and then Smith.
Thanks, Alex. Just so anyone who's listening, in case they may want to apply in the future, what kinds of things does it cover and what can people apply for? And so they understand if they could make their hall or church into a comfort center as well.
That's a great question. This particular grant covers the backup power. So if you need to purchase a generator, if you need electrical switches, if you need upgrades, so that the generator works with your electrical system, that's what that would cover. We also have other community grants. So if you're looking at things like an accessibility improvement, we could certainly look at making sure you're connected to those funds as well.
Can you go back to the registered map?
Yeah, this map is also available on the REMO website.
Okay.
And again, it covers halls that have an active memorandum of understanding with us. There are occasionally halls, this happens more so on the Chester side of the line, but there are halls that are acting as comfort centers, but for whatever reason don't have a current agreement with the municipalities to serve as the comfort center. So you may be looking and saying, hey, the hall that I normally go to is not there. So we can have a conversation afterwards if they're interested in filling out an MOU.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's any kind of strategy around ensuring that there are comfort centers in enough local communities, like distributed somewhat.
Yes, that's an interesting question. Because they're volunteer organizations, we certainly informally encourage different groups to come forward, particularly if we know that there's a gap. You know, we have some isolated communities. Tancook obviously comes to mind where we'd really like to see something like that. And so we've had community groups step up because they've had informal discussions with our emergency management coordinator or with a local councillor who wanted to see something set up.
Yeah, I might just take a look at that map and have a conversation with you. And even, like you say, just a conversation with the community group. They might not know about the fund and might just need a bit of a nudge.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. I'm sure Westside United Church will be happy to get that. We will move to our last section on our agenda, which is mayors, deputy mayors, and councillor matters. And the first item is MJSB. Councillor Oikel.
Councillor Burns and I will be sharing this as I do the main business part and he does the financial part. So this meeting was on the 24th of September and the business plan update for the first quarter 25-26, sorry. The 25-26 business plan was approved by the board on January the 22nd, 2025, and the plan outlines the organization's key strategic priorities for the year. Quarterly updates were provided to the board to track progress against these priorities. With the leadership transition, the directors are confirming deliverables, reallocating resources, and proposing any adjusted timelines to ensure delivery of the business plan focus areas. The board accepted the first quarter business plan update for information purposes. Proposed update to storm days in personnel policy. The existing personnel policy contains language regarding process for service provisions and office closure during inclement weather needed to be updated. The board supported the changes to this policy. Signing authority update. With the planning departure of Leslie McFarland, the Chief Operating Officer, it is necessary to update our signing authority at TD Bank to ensure appropriate financial control remains in place. Leslie McFarland will be removed as the signing authority from all bank accounts of Municipal Joint Service Board, Lunenburg Region, and that the necessary documentation will be filed with the TD Bank. The Fire Smart Brush Program, excuse me, I just have to move this down, continues to be popular with residents. A slowdown was expected over the summer, however, volumes stayed steady. With dry weather and fires in the region, residents are using the program to clear brush and make their properties safer. Equipment and site security. After questions at the June MJSB meeting, the staff confirmed with the vendor that selling the excavator privately or through auction would yield a better return than a trade-in. There is no clear tax advantage to trade-ins since MJSB receives a public service body rebate on GST and HST. Site security and communication project has been completed, including the installation of the new thermal camera in the landfill transfer station. Our insurance contract has confirmed that this will result in a premium reduction, with the exact amount still to be determined. With most in our financial department, with most categories performing as expected and no major deficits. I will turn the time over to Councillor Burns.
All right, I will go reasonably quick here and keep it at a high level so our eyes don't glaze over, but in summary, I'm about to tell you things financially are going well. Doane Grant Thornton completed the annual audit, and so we accepted that and approved the consolidated financial statements for the year ending March 31st, 2025 at our September 24th meeting. And we received, just so you know, a clean opinion, meaning while there's always a few minor things that auditors pick up on, if they don't, then it's a big build for them to say nothing, so they always have to come up with something. But they provided us clean opinion, which means the financial statements present fairly and accurately in all materially relevant aspects the financial position of the MJSB. really what you want to know is how are we doing according to budget? Well, the answer is we actually did a little bit better than budget. There was a surplus of $698,000, although a good chunk of that was actually due to additional revenue from an insurance payout due to the fire that happened there. You're going to notice on financial statements that both the assets and the liabilities are higher than what was expected, but again, that comes down to receiving insurance proceeds, which are an asset, and then some of the repairs that need to be done or have been done due to the fire. You will also notice that when it comes to the operating, which isn't the big picture, but the how did we do this year, money in, money out kind of situation, that revenues were up, and while a good chunk of revenues being up again is the accounting of the insurance money flowing in following the fire. Where you're really seeing revenues higher was from commercial and non-partner tonnage, and non-partner being not us, not the town, not Mahone Bay. It's private operators, and a lot of that I think is due to sort of the boom post-COVID there about building and people tearing stuff down and renovating. Those materials are heading over. So there's a lot more heading in. You'll also notice expenses were higher than budgeted for two reasons. One, asset write-offs from the fire. You see the theme here. It matches. But also expenses were proportionally higher with the increased commercial tonnage. Again, not a bad thing considering there was also the additional revenue. So overall, it just meant that they did a little bit better. It's in a good, strong financial position. And what we're really seeing is financial growth and upside from the private sector on this, not just from us. It's not just more tax money going in and making a surplus. It's people who need the service paying for the service and getting it done. We also looked at the first quarter results of this year, and you're actually seeing a little bit higher revenue. Again, this is actually more from recyclables than the commercial non-partner revenue, and we're actually seeing some capital expenditures coming in under budget thus far. There's a couple of big yellow machines that need replacing there, and everyone knows those get quite expensive as soon as you see the name CAT on the side, but they managed to get it in under budget. So at this point, no significant budget concerns. The plan is there.
Councillor Burns, we're going to soon think you're an accountant and not a lawyer.
If I could bill accordingly, it would be quite nice.
Thank you for that. We will move to Councillor Moore and Region 6 update.
Okay, Region 6 Solid Waste Resource Management Committee met on September 12, 2025. We received the financial audit report for 2024-25. Kent and Dufay accounting reports nothing unusual and no corrections were necessary. All information was accurate and presented to the auditor in a timely manner. There was a surplus of $8,365. Surplus funds are applied against future expenses and will be used to offset regional costs in 26-27, thereby reducing the support needed for municipal units. Update on extended producer responsibility, EPR, for printer paper packaging and packaging-like products, PPP. Agreements are being negotiated with municipal units. An option has been secured to continue collecting from small ICI, industrial, commercial, and institutional, along with the residential collections. Municipalities will pay a small fee for each stop as ICI materials are outside the scope. As December 1st approaches, various education resources have been produced by Circular Materials, Producer Responsibility Organization for our use. This will ensure the same message is being promoted through the province. Agreements are being negotiated with those municipalities that own processing facilities for recyclables. To date, none have signed, and the Region of Queens has announced they will close their facility December 1st, 2025. In general, concerns were expressed that the new EPR program will see even more trucking of material and negative consequences to roads and our environment. Concerns also raised that some municipalities report negotiations seem to be one-sided. Small municipalities negotiating with a national organization left them feeling they had little choice or control for the outcome. Both of these concerns were taken by our acting chair, Scott McLean, to the Provincial Regional Chairs Committee.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Okay.
I did not write that.
We'll go to Councillor Oikel, and I'm going to suggest, because it's 8:15, that this will be our last item tonight. I turn it over to Councillor Oikel.
Thank you very much. This is something that was brought to me by actually a few different residents, and it has to do with laundry services, because a lot of people who don't have their water in their well are spending incredible amounts of money on laundry at the laundromats. Fortunately, I believe we only have two, one in Lunenburg and one in Bridgewater. But I'm just wondering and would like to suggest that we ask staff to look into some kind of a program of financial relief that we can help with people that are using, because of their dried well and have to get the laundry done at the laundromat.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts? Councillor Moore.
I too have heard many concerns from residents that their wells are dry, they have to go to Bridgewater, to the laundromat, or even Lunenburg. A family of 3 or 4 kids, and people happen to pay the gas to go to the laundromat and then pay for the laundry services, which is, I think, a small load of laundry is $4.50, and the larger load is $9.50. When you have 3, 4 kids and bedding and towels and all that good stuff, it adds up in the run of a week and a month for families that are trying to just get by as they are. So I think this is a good plan.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, and I have heard from people who are using laundry services in order to keep their well from going dry. So there are people who are conserving hard right now, and they're monitoring their water levels, and so I hope that we could look at options for, because nobody's taking their laundry to the laundromat if they don't have to. But people are conserving enough that they have enough for showers and that kind of thing. So if we could include people who are, their well's not quite dry, but they need to use the services, that would be great.
And in terms of the process that follows from here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, staff will have to take it away and have a look. We have approximately 400 households registered right now in our temporary water relief. So there's obviously going to be a budget implication if we're going to extend beyond bottled water into laundry costs as well. So if council passes the motion, then we'll take it away and have a look at feasibility in terms of.
We don't have a motion, it would be just direction from council to take a staff report.
If there's
support. We're trained, you've got
Sure.
us trained.
If there's support around the table, staff will go away and look at some of the implications, if there's implementation concerns and what the budget might look like for the remainder of the year.
I think we have to look at the whole water program as part of that because of the time and what I said earlier about the fact it's now middle of October and no water, no rain, so.
We are getting reimbursement this year for the first time ever from the provincial government, Department of Emergency Management, for the water coupon program, which is why you haven't seen a request from us that we've blown the budget, because we would have blown the budget without that support.
Councillor Moore.
I'm hoping, through you to Alex, I'm hoping this has a quick turnaround. Something like this that's going to take a month, 6 weeks to 2 months is not what the people are needing right now. Thank you.
Councillor Burns.
I'm going to be unpopular for this, but I have to say, for me, it just seems there are going to be many ways in which residents come to me and ask me how the municipal government can help them, and there are many ways that I tell residents that we're not the spot to do that. I do it on roads. I do it on their affordability of legal advice that they need, especially in high risk and high emotional family situations. I do it for cell phone bills. I do it for general affordability. There's a lot of other places I tell folks they need to go for the financial support. I know as a council, there are things that are, I think, within our core mandate that we look at that we sometimes even say, no, there's not enough money for that. We'll do something different. And while this is a really good idea, with unlimited funds and with unlimited time and staff resources, there are countless good ideas that we could push forward. I just think with everything that's on the table right now, we have some programs for relief. I haven't heard from my residents that this is where they're looking for it. And I know there's a lot of hype about this and it feels really good, but at the same time, it's one more thing we're asking staff to do quickly for a budget implication. And there's a lot of ways that we could be helping people. Lines seem really arbitrary, especially to those being on the wrong side of it, but in my gut, I'm just on the other side of that line with how far are we willing to go.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I don't want to let Councillor Burns be out on the limb by himself. I don't believe that it's Councillor's responsibility to provide social programs to individual citizens. We have provided assistance in the acquisition of water coupons, like 2,500, and setting up a water station where they can draw water freely. To take this to the next level, I don't believe it's necessary as a municipal project. We also have a program to assist financing to acquire new wells. I think there's 6 registered now. I feel we have done and dealt with the level of concern that we need to at this point. We're going into winter, and who knows where this takes us? Who knows what the draw will be? If you're coming back with a suggestion and it has a firm figure of how much we're willing to spend, I could be lenient. But you know what? I know you always, we're at the end, we need to raise more money. Oh, we need to put more money into this. And so, therefore, I'd be a little bit reluctant. But the different levels of government have their responsibilities listed. I don't see social programs in the Municipal Government Act. I'm trying to live to what my obligation is as an elected municipal official. Thank you.
Councillor Oiko.
Thank you. I do believe in the past, and it was taken from municipalities, that we did do social things such as foster care.
Service exchange is
Right,
taken
right.
from us.
I know, I said, and that's what I just said, if you had listened.
I did listen, and I was just...
No, that's
Okay, order, please.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying, right? But I do feel that this is an area that we can support and help. It's a little thing, but it is something that residents are asking, as we have heard from other councillors. And I think that it's something that can, by discussing, and maybe nothing can be done, because we only do have 2 laundromats. But I think it should be looked into, and there's nothing wrong with looking into something and finding out and having more information.
Deputy Mayor Vino.
I'm toss and turn on this. As somebody that uses a laundromat, we have 2 in the entire, and they're in the towns, but we only have 2. And I also worry about the impact that it might put on these only 2 laundromats, flooding them with an inflow of people that they just can't keep up with without involving them in that conversation. It's not really a question, but just I'm thinking bigger picture and what that onus puts on the 2 laundromats. And sorry. And then at what point do you stop the program? Like, how much rain do we need to have to stop the program? And will people expect it more? It's a real good feel thing to do, but I'm weighing feelings with taxpayer dollars. That's kind of where I stand.
So, Councillor, and I'll make a comment.
I think our direction is just to council to bring back a report. I'm not quite sure if we need to decide whether this council is going to ask them yes or no. I don't know if is it our decision tonight to say to staff, no or yes? Can we just wait for the report to come back and then we can debate whether it's going to be good for the residents or not?
The question even becomes, do you want to speak? Yes. Just before you do, the question becomes, the time it takes to actually put something together is, I think to Councillor Burns' point, if that's, and Councillor Bell, both putting resources to looking at it is time, and that's time away from some of all the other things that we have on our agenda. But I'll let Tom speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. So the point I was about to make is if council gives us direction to look into this, that means we're not looking into something else. Something has to fall off the table. We have a list of over 100 items broken down by quarter that we're currently working on. And that doesn't even take into account the fact that council strategic priority sessions begin this month and budget starts next month. By my rough math, if it's $20, 2 large loads of laundry a week would be about $20. We have 400 homes on our coupon program. That's $8,000 a week that we'd be looking for a laundry program to allow those 400 residents to do 2 loads of laundry a week. So this isn't a small ask, assuming that the 2 businesses can accommodate it. We would have to figure out the funding, how it would work, the eligibility requirements, how we track it. We could use the water coupon program as a base for identifying those homeowners or residents that are in need. But if council wants to direct us to look into it at a very high level, we could give you a sense of what it would take to create the program and what we would think it would cost. So if you're interested in that, we're happy to do it. But if the likelihood is that the cost is too expensive and that's your gut reaction now, then perhaps it's best to consider other options on how you could achieve the same result and give some assistance to residents that are needing laundry services. But it's we're getting, it happened today, 1,000-gallon container was filled up with a garden hose at our municipal building, right? And over the weekend, there were multiple of those that take hours of time. So it's getting great use. People are getting the water, some of the water that they need through that program. And that was easier to set up. We just hooked it up and it operated. The coupon program is being very well received. Over 400 residents, well over 4,000 coupons. So that's an option that they have. And it's not that we aren't interested in looking into this, but it's going to take time and it's going to take money. And if you want something that can be turned around in 30 or 60 days, significant items will have to fall off the list of action items, and it's not budgeted. So we'd be putting forward something that's probably going to easily take up all of the council contingency in the first month.
Deputy Mayor Vino, and then we're going to decide what we're going to do here.
I just wanted to confirm your numbers. You said there was 400 currently using the water program. That's correct?
Yeah, it's roughly. Yep.
I think that number would be very low once you add in the laundry tickets, because as Councillor Smith had stated, people are conserving now, and just those that might be thinking, well, maybe I should get in on this program now. So I think 400 is a very low number that we'd be looking at, which would raise the price significantly above $8,000.
And just if I can clarify, 400 are using the coupon program. We don't have an idea yet of how many people are using the water system, and we won't know that until we can look at the billing and the use. So that's being provided by the Bridgewater Public Service Commission, but it's not free. Our water rate will end up getting us a bill, but it'll be a while before we see what those numbers are. So the 400 is if just the coupon people access the laundry program, you're looking at roughly $8,000 a week.
Councillor Smith. then we are going to decide.
I know that you're trying to wrap this up, and I want to thank Councillor Royko for bringing this forward. I think we should always be looking at, I think it can't be understated, this is an emergency. And like the drought is an emergency and people are coping with it. And I think we have some great ways that we're responding, and could a laundromat coupon also help? I'm not sure. But I think it does speak to the need for us to bring this into strategic planning as well, because drought is just going to keep coming back as we face climate change, and yeah, we need as many strategies as we can, because a lot of my residents have dry wells right now, and so I really appreciate it being brought forward, but I feel like we need more of a plan.
Okay, my direction would be that for a show of hands, those who wish staff to pursue this and bring back a report to council. Okay, I would say that we won't be doing that. But thank you for raising the issue, and we had a good discussion about it. So there is other business on the agenda, reports and so forth, but we are going to defer those to policy and strategy meeting next week. Without any further ado, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.